For Ukraine!
Air defense 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 for Ukraine!
And also, Obama has actually given to Ukraine in terms of support. Britain hasn't limited its support to statements. Britain has supported Ukraine not just with morals, not just with words, but it's actually supported Ukraine with weapons and also convening support through a coalition of the willing. For that we are thankful. Thank you, Britain.
Thank you, Britain!
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you, Britain!
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you, Britain! 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 Thank you, Britain!
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you, Britain! Thank you, Britain! Thank you, Britain! Thank you, Britain! Thank you, Britain!
And what I want to add to that is, since independence, the UK has always been that friend supporting Ukraine in independence. And what this premiership of Sir Keir Starmer has done is it's continued that friendship, it's cemented that friendship. Like I said, the coalition of the willing, but the 100-year partnership with Ukraine, an agreement covering defense, security, trade, energy, science, technology, justice, and culture. What we want is the next Prime Minister to support Ukraine just as much, because Ukraine is such a priority. We cannot allow Ukraine to fall, but most importantly, we need Ukraine to win. Help Ukraine win!
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 And I started this speech saying I felt a bit deflated. I never feel deflated after spending 10-15 minutes here, because I realise we can actually do something about this. We need to feel that power that we've got. We've got that voice. We can say things, we can speak to friends, we can speak to family, we can speak to work colleagues so that they know what's going on. People may not have known about MH17. Tell them about MH17. Tell them about Russia's track record, its history of brutality, its total disregard of humanity. That's an important message that we need to convey to lawmakers, and most importantly, to the next Prime Minister of this country. Because if we stand united and together, we will win, and we have to win. All together we will win!
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 Support Ukraine, protect peace!
Support Ukraine, protect peace.
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 Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Наш героям тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Go from here, just to leave us alone. 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 Has a way to give you back what you've given me. Just you go from here. Just you leave us alone. You can leave us alone.
Слава Україні! Героям слава! Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Слава нації! Україна! Понад усе! Україна! Понад усе! Україна! Понад усе! Нашим славним захисникам і захисницям тричі! Слава! Слава! Слава!
Thank you everyone for joining us, and this is why it is so important that we fly our flag and we speak about the war crimes that Russia commit every single day. And we had Palestinians, we had all sorts of different people who come to us and they say, why don't you come to our war rallies? Well, at our war rallies we have Lithuanians, we have Belarusians who are being oppressed by Russians and were oppressed in 2020 during their elections by military armed police when they had rigged elections. They have thousands of political prisoners Lithuanians, Estonians and Latvians, they know what is Russian occupation, and Russians are trying to occupy as much territory of Ukraine as possible right now. And this is why we gather here every Sunday at 4 o'clock for 2 hours. And this is why this is such a symbolic thing that you see a Ukrainian flag, 3 of them on top of the Downing Street offices. And this is why it is so important that most of Europe, Japan, Australia, Canada, so many amazing democratic countries help Ukraine to defend against Russian aggression. And this is why, tell me who are your friends and I will tell you who you are. If your friend is North Korea, if your friend and your role model is North Korea, if you support dictatorship, same as happened in Syria, the fall of dictatorship. Why? Because Russia was never as weak as it is right now. Ukraine is doing against all the odds the impossible. Russian Black Sea Navy does not exist. Whatever remains of it left. How many oil tankers we have damaged that were coming to Crimea? Because Crimea is Ukraine, and all of the occupied territory that Russians are standing right now is Ukraine, and we will gather here until this war is over. Ukraine does not have any conditions, not a single condition Ukraine has for peace after this war. The only condition right. Any decision, what is normal for Ukrainians is unheard of for Russians. We had Maidan. Russians will never have that because they don't know what democracy is. How many presidents Ukraine had and how many presidents Russia had. Yeltsin came to them on the tank, Putin was given them for Christmas, and Medvedev was there just to change the constitution. We are fighting not to become Russians because we are not. If you Google the breadbasket of Europe, you get Ukraine. If you Google the war crimes in Mali, Russia, Burkina Faso, Russia, Niger, Russia, Central African Republic, Russia, Moldova, Russia, war crimes in Georgia, Russia, war crimes in Ukraine, Russia, from Africa to Middle East, from Middle East to Europe. Russia is not a Ukrainian problem. Russia is world problem because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
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 Help Ukraine protect peace.
Help Ukraine protect peace.
Help Ukraine protect peace.
Help Ukraine protect peace.
And this is why we gather here. And this is why we gonna have on 22nd of August in Fulham, we're gonna have I think his name is, I never watched it because I'm very sorry, I wasn't born in Ukraine, I didn't grow up in Ukraine, but we're gonna have Igor Kondratyuk, same last name as mine. We're gonna have a charity event with him on the 22nd of August in Fulham. Imperial Wharf is the closest station. All information will be on our social media. We gather funds. Usually we gather about around £10,000 on those kind of events and more. to buy drones, to buy helmets, to buy direct aid for Ukrainian army. And this is why we gather here. We gather here for peace and freedom. This is why it takes up to 25 countries to restore our power grid. And it takes one Russia to try to destroy it. Every single winter since 2022, they try to freeze us. They try to destroy our petrol stations, they try to destroy our shopping malls, our hospitals. But guess what? I don't know why, but weak Ukraine achieved unthinkable. Somehow in Crimea there is no oil. Somehow we can damage more than 78 power stations in Crimea. The non-nuclear country can go to Kursk region and be there, and they need North Koreans. Russians needed more than 10,000 North Koreans to fight Ukrainians in Russia. This is why, not if, but when we win. This is why Belarusians stand with us. This is why Lithuanians, Estonians, Latvians, I grew up in Latvia, but I have Ukrainian parents. I remember the hatred of the Latvians in the 90s when I spoke Russian, because Russian language, for those who got occupied by Russians, is a reminder of that occupation, is the reminder of that oppression. When you hear any other language, you think of the writer who wrote in that language. When you hear Russian language, Russians demand every single of their neighbor, Kazakhstan, Belarus, Baltic countries, they demand Georgia, they demand that you speak their language, because their parents and their grandparents made sure that you must know their language because of their occupation. What they do in Ukraine right now, they did it to too many countries. This is why so many countries are so eager to help. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Василь, можеш попросити у дівчат картонку для мене з Федором? And this is why we gather here. This is why we gather here. We gather here for peace and freedom in Ukraine as the largest European country. Diva. And this is why we gather here, yeah? Any decision that our politicians make, we make them accountable. What you see right now in Ukraine is not a rebellion against the government. Anyone can make mistakes. And what we do, we just hold them accountable. We hold them accountable, and this is why we gather here. If we didn't like what happened in 2014, we had Maidan. We can have Maidan every year. Russians do not know what democracy is, but they want to make us like them. They tried to do it in USSR era to my parents. They were oppressing my parents, my grandparents. I was born in Czech Republic in the 80s, and I don't know why, but my birth certificate is in Russian. Why? Because Russians occupied Czech Republic in the 80s. And this is why we stand here. We stand here against Russian occupation. We stand here against this shrinking club of dictatorship. Syrian dictatorship, as I said before, fell because of Ukrainian resilience. When, not if we win, this will change the history of Europe. Because Russia should not dictate to the world how geopolitics are being run. When they were making jokes that Europe will be without petrol and without electricity. Guess what? They have the problems that they wished for us. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state. Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Stop Russia! Stop the war!
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 Tribunal for Russian war criminals!
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 And this is why we gather here. Me, I come here for my cousin Sergey, who is on the front line for more than 2 years. He is not directly on the front line, but he works with the soldiers from the front line. And the stories that he tells me, that this resilience has a very heavy price. Many Ukrainians break, many Ukrainians psychologically break before the even body gives in. And this is why it is so important that every single war rally, we remember every single person. Today, 1 person was killed, 16 got injured. Every single day, our rotten and the cursed the neighbor wakes up with one plan to kill as many Ukrainians as possible. Mainly, they are targeting our civilians every single day since 2014, and without a single day off from February of 2022 until today. Every single day they choose what school, what hospital, what church they're gonna bomb. And this is why every single war rally we have a minute of silence for every single person who got killed in this war. This minute of silence for me is for a man who was a police officer just outside Lviv in Kamenka-Buzka, who volunteered in 2022, the moment the full-scale invasion started. He volunteered to go to the front line. He stepped on a mine about 6 months after he joined the army and finished his training. And there was nothing to bury. Imagine that you have a son who went to war and you are told that there is nothing to bury because after that mine there was nothing left of this person. So we gather here because there is something that is left after Roman and thousands of our Ukrainian soldiers who put their life on the line every single day, and they will never return home. It's a hope that we still holding on, that although they were outside Kiev in 2022, they will never be inside Kiev, never in their wildest dreams. And this is why every single war rally, we lower all the flags and we have a minute of silence for every single child and every single civilian they killed, because every single Ukrainian soldier before this war was a civilian. They forced us to train our civilians how to kill those who come to kill us. And we're gonna have this minute of silence now. Thank you so much.
Слава Україні! Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Музика? Музична пауза. Вийди сюди.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
І нашим захисникам тричі.
Слава! Слава! Слава!
This is why we gathered here.